I'm Joseph.
And I'm Nick.
And this is Fish Jelly.
And we're just a couple of bitches.
Bitches.
That relates to something we'll talk about.
Oh, I can't wait. It's Monday. So we're a day late again. Why is that? We had friends over for the first time to our new place on Saturday. And there was a lot of wine.
And lost our minds.
And you didn't go to bed until 6 a.m.
This is true. It was also daylight savings, which...
Daylight savings betrayed us. Because
Yes.
even I went to bed closer to 1. But still woke up at my usual 5 a.m. So, yeah. So the day was already kind of jacked. But it was... We both had fun.
Yes, we did. We watched a film,
We watched Deep Water.
which we still have to review.
Yes. But feeling refreshed.
Oh, yeah?
Not really.
The people need to know that someone lies.
Well, I don't feel wrecked.
No, and neither do you look it.
Well, thank you. But I think you were more hungover than I was. You drink a lot more than I do, which is the norm, but...
Well, okay.
Well, you do.
Okay, well, you know...
You go harder than I do in general.
Uh-huh.
So I wasn't fucked up on Sunday, but I was definitely tired.
I was tired. I felt fuzzy. I didn't have a headache.
Well, here we are.
I mean, it was just it's just a little wine.
RuPaul's Drag Race, season 14, episode 10, which was the Snatch Game.
Oh yeah. Oh god. Maybe the worst Snatch game ever.
I think it was the worst Snatch Game.
Because almost every other one has had like a great highlight. Even the one with Latrice and what was that?
The one who did Beyonce, what was her name?
The little Puerto Rican, right?
The little trans girl. Yeah. No, this was the worst. It just wasn't funny. And the person who won was all right. Compared to everyone else, she was the best, but...
But yeah, she was kind of just doing
Well, let's go through. So, the contestants for Snatch Game, their characters were... So, Angeria was...
Tammy Brown.
Bosco was...
Gwyneth Paltrow.
Who she couldn't say goop, so
Yeah.
she kept saying droop.
Yeah.
Which I thought, well, we'll get
Just
into
say,
it.
well, okay.
Diabetti,
Ozzy Osbourne.
Deja Sky,
Lil Jon.
Jasmine Kennedy,
Betsy DeVos.
Georges,
Was Ilana Glazer.
Lady Camden,
William Shakespeare a la Joanna Lumley.
right, and then Willow Pill.
Drew Barrymore.
Okay, so Angeria is Tammy Brown. So RuPaul goes into the workroom like he normally does and talks to a selection of the queens to ask about their choice. And, Tammy Brown has a history on Drag Race of having sort of a
Contention
with RuPaul. So when Angeria says Tammy Brown, RuPaul's like, oh, okay, interesting. And initially, Angeria is doing Tammy like sort of the weird, quirky mannerisms, and it was cute.
like clam happy Tammy, yeah.
It was cute, but I was worried. I was worried. And ultimately, it was very one note.
Yep.
She just kept doing the same weird. She looked funny, but
Not like Tammy.
she had hair like Tammy, but then because Tammy wears curly hair sometimes, on Angeria, it didn't look... The hair Angeria wore looked like it would be her hair, but then it was styled in a way that Tammy would wear. So she looked... I actually thought she looked more like... Who's that lady? Yvette Brown? Or the one who's like popular on social...
The vegan?
Yes. What's her name?
Oh, that Olivia played on... I was just told to look up some SmackDown between her and Wendy Williams. But
That's right. Whatever that lady's name is, I thought Angeria looked more like her to be, so I didn't think it was good. Okay, Bosco is Gwyneth Paltrow.
Oh, also Tammy Brown does Tammy Faye Baker makeup because that's one of her muses, and
That's right.
I didn't get that from Angeria at all.
No, but she was also not looking directly. She kept part of her thing was to sort of look down and then sort of her body language. It was just very. She was stuck doing one thing.
Yeah.
Okay, Bosco is Gwyneth Paltrow. I think I like Bosco a lot. He's very. I think.
He's a favorite, yeah.
I think Bosco's trans. So.
Oh yeah, yes, that's true.
So
Several of
I
them.
believe she. So Bosco.
They.
They. Oh, it's they.
I don't know.
I'm not sure Bosco's preferred pronouns, so I'll just say Bosco. So Bosco, very smart.
Yes.
I thought might do well as Gwyneth Paltrow, but the problem is Gwyneth Paltrow's not very interesting, and I think my impression of her personality is that she's kind of like pretentious, but
grating.
yeah, grating because she's one of those pretentious, sort of like very wannabe, like liberal progress. I don't not wannabe, but like she presents herself as very like progressive and non-traditional. And then just because of the website Goop, it just seems like she's just pretentious.
She definitely rubs me the wrong way, and but I think that Bosco could have gone a lot further with that. And then the voice was a bit distracting.
The voice was distracting, and Bosco brought out like a candle because everyone knows Gwyneth has that damn candle that's supposed to smell like her vagina, and then Bosco brought out like some sort of kombucha, but it was in like
It was kombucha.
Oh, kombucha, that's what it was.
That's why they blocked.
That's right, you're right. But then it was in like a old used gallon water bottle. It just looked raggedy, and yes. So that was,
and it was taken out during a time like he
his
utilized
timing
that
was off.
problem.
Yeah. Okay, Diabetti is Ozzy Osbourne. I have to say, as much as I can't stand Diabetti, I did think that choice was
The choice is interesting,
smart.
but it was a trash performance.
I don't think it was the worst.
It wasn't the worst, but it wasn't good.
No, it wasn't good. But I thought, I think Diabetti has a shitty personality, and it comes across in almost everything.
True, I also
he
don't
does.
want to pay her compliments, but her shtick, which she was just copying answers from Bosco.
As it was, the way it was edited, it seemed like Dia copied two answers from Bosco, yeah.
As in that was Ozzy's character shtick because his mind is gone, maybe.
Which didn't translate. Yeah,
didn't translate.
It didn't work. Okay, Jasmine Kennedy is Betsy DeVos. I thought that was a smart choice.
Very smart
because
choice, but
we don't know, like, most people's impression of Betsy DeVos is that she wasn't qualified for her job. And then because she doesn't have a distinct personality, that's a character, a person someone could really take liberties with. But I think Jasmine is not a comedian, obviously.
Jasmine's not old enough to kind of work... Because you could have turned Betsy DeVos into this frazzled, fibromyalgic cesspool of things. And, she could have spelled words wrong on the card. Like, there's so many things you could have done.
There were a lot
with
of
her.
things, and I think Jasmine just isn't a comedian and didn't realize that, how to develop a character. And what the direction Jasmine chose just didn't work.
Like, what's his name did with Melania Trump. There's a way to...
Aquaria's approach to Melania Trump
There's a way to do things with despicable people that's...
Well, that worked very well, yeah. Okay, Georges is Alana Glazer. I don't know who Alana Glazer is.
Yes, you do. We reviewed a film with her in Pierce Brosnan. What was the name of that last year?
Okay, I remember that movie, and I know so I remember the lady in it. I could not have told you that was Alana Glazer.
Okay.
So... I don't know this lady's personality at all, but from the moment Georges gets introduced as Alana Glazer, I was like, ooh, this is not going to be good.
Yeah, the movie is False Positive.
False Positive.
But Alana Glazer is known for Broad City.
Yeah, so even though I don't know who Alana Glazer is, I felt like Georges was not doing this character justice because he just wasn't funny.
No.
Okay, I was so confused by Lady Camden Shakespeare because in the workroom, RuPaul says, oh, well, what's your other choice? Joanna Lumley, who we all know as Patsy from Absolutely Fabulous. And RuPaul says, well, this is great because no one knows how William Shakespeare behaved, so you can take liberties. And wouldn't it be funny if William Shakespeare acted like Patsy from Ab Fab? And Lady Camden goes, yes, that's perfect. But then this motherfucker shows up on the panel as William Shakespeare, but like a woman.
Well,
So it almost felt like he interpreted RuPaul's comment as like, oh, combine Shakespeare with Joanna Lumley aesthetically, and I thought it was super distracting.
it's distracting, but also, he didn't play on any. The term drag comes from Elizabethan era, dressed as a girl in stage notes. Like,
Well, I think that would have been the smart thing to play on.
there's all kinds of things to play
It's sort of like gender issues that pertain to Shakespeare.
Well,
and how
because
he
women weren't allowed on stage, right?
Right. So, I think he should have done that. But then he should have done it talking like Patsy, maybe.
Or the reveal is that William Shakespeare was a woman.
Or that.
Something.
Like he could have been done up and then removed because his outfit, he had breasts. Mm-hmm. So it's like, maybe he should have revealed the breast. Like, actually, I'm coming out as trans.
Something. Virginia Woolf had an essay about Shakespeare's sister, as in if Shakespeare had a sister, basically how she would have been neglected, even if she was just as brilliant. There's so many things.
Willow Pill is Drew Barrymore. I was so disappointed because Willow is like a fave.
Yeah.
And very smart and Willow's comedic timing seems to be very much intact. Mm-hmm. But clearly that Willow is not a comedian, is not a comedy writer. Again, because
this is where sometimes people make decisions to do something off the cuff and that works for them. But if you're somebody that research, like the research that wasn't there that fucked her up was she
didn't realize that Drew Barrymore and RuPaul have worked together.
Yes, because she acts like she's meeting RuPaul for the first time.
And then RuPaul says, oh, well, interesting, you forgot we spent an entire summer working together. Yeah. So that was cringy and a terrible start.
She didn't recover from that.
No, but I think, like one of the judges said, it seemed like Willow was just sort of looking to RuPaul for like approval. And it's like, well, now's not the time because you're just not being funny. And then lastly, Deja Sky's Little John. I think that's a very smart choice because Little John has an affect and vocal cues that are extremely recognizable, and that carried him throughout the entire performance.
Yeah,
because all he did was go, okay, yeah, like for literally the entire thing. So lucky for him, everyone else was garbage, and he won.
Oh, but that runway.
Oh, yes, we have to talk about the runway. So the runway theme was Holy Couture. And I was so confused.
This also a disappointing runway across the board. There were some highlights, but
I liked Bosco because Bosco came out in like a nun's habit and then tore it off and was sort of wearing a very basic like BDSM style, but super basic with like ram's hooves or whatever, like goat hooves.
I mean, it gave me my nunsploitation that I needed.
It definitely fit the theme, but then other people. Oh, and then Deja was dressed like Joan of Arc, but it was very Party City.
Oh, it looked bad.
It looked cheap, but it definitely fit the theme. And then one other Angeria. Angeria to me is when I heard the theme Holy Couture, I thought someone would dress up like a church lady. Yeah. And Angeria showed up looking like the quintessential church lady. So, like, very preacher's wife. So I thought that made sense. But then, like, fucking Diabetes is wearing, like, a bridal gown that looked like she got it from a thrift store. It's too short. It's, like, and then she just covered it with, like, crosses. And this terrible wig that I know is a reference to, like, Lady Gaga. I thought that shit looked cheaper than Deja Sky's outfit.
Well, and then she fell.
But the one who confused me the most was Willow Pill. Because she came out dressed like fungus. And I didn't... She
worships mushrooms.
Because she microdoses for her health. Yeah. But I thought that was a stretch. No, well, I don't know. Maybe the bigger stretch was damn Lady Camden. Because this bitch comes out dressed like all the Spice Girls combined. And says she worships the Spice Girls.
Yes, I think it becomes... The theme is not what you worship. The theme is, I think, a recognized... Willow's... You could have turned that into something Wiccan, something worshipping the earth.
I think pagan. There are certain themes where it's open to interpretation and it's fun to see how people interpret it. But to me, Holy Couture, there's a very clear sort of idea of what that should be. And I was very bothered by Lady Camden and Willow Pill. Even though they both looked fine to me, it didn't match. the theme.
Yeah.
But the biggest gag of this episode is no one goes home because
even though they're all being in the doghouse.
So now this is the 5th episode. 4th.
I don't remember.
4th, 5th.
But, that Paramount Plus money must be good. I don't know.
Now there's another episode where no one goes home. And then we still have that golden ticket floating around. But RuPaul says, aside from the winner, all of y'all were garbage. So next week we're going to do a lip sync Lollapalooza, Lollapalooza, whatever, to determine who's going home. So of course we're assuming more than one person will go home.
That could be two. But you know what? Somebody should have been that damn golden ticket on Snatch Game.
They didn't know about the golden. They wouldn't have had time to make a costume.
That's true.
But that would be an excellent.
Oh, yes.
Maybe next season Snatch Game, someone should be the golden ticket. Someone should be the golden ticket. Okay, moving on to RuPaul's Drag Race UK versus the World.
Oh, that happened too.
That happened. We have a winner.
Wait, who won? Oh, yes. Wait, we talked about that, didn't we?
No. So there were only 6 episodes, which, I don't know, it just seems so cheap in comparison because obviously US Drag Race will have 38 episodes this season. But then UK versus the World, which has much lower production quality, the lighting is very questionable, and then it only took 6 episodes to get a winner.
I think, now that you say it's the first season that's untested as a platform, a tangent of this universe, which I think explains why we got who we got for the U.S. queens.
Yeah, I feel like it was bargain basement.
Mohart's not bargain basement, but again, availability.
Mohart's not someone who, to me, RuPaul, like UK versus the World, or I heard from someone that next time it'll be Canada versus the World. To me, it sounds like it should be like the Olympics. Like the best of the best are going. Like winners or top 3s.
Sure. Yeah.
And yeah, Jujubee is the ultimate top 3. So I guess she fits. But it's like no one thinks Jujubee is going to win.
Jujubee's, who's the member of the Supremes that got kicked off and died?
Mary Wilson?
Was it Mary
No,
Wilson?
no.
Flo? No.
I think it's Flo. But anyway.
Jujubee.
Sorry to this woman. So this final episode, they have to do a lip sync smackdown for the crown, which is so boring.
Yeah.
It's so boring.
Especially when it's like, not all of them can dance, so.
Not all of them can dance. The songs just don't feel like,
songs.
Ugh. So, yeah. I don't know. One of them was like Domino by Jessie J. I know there was a Duran Duran song. There was a Kylie Minogue song. Mohart goes up. So first is Mohart against Bag of Chips, and of course Mohart wins. Mm-hmm. And then in the final, it's Mohart versus. So then, whatever.
And then it's Blue Hydrangea versus
Jujubee. Blue Hydrangea sends Jujubee off, and then in the end, it's Blue Hydrangea versus Mohart, and they lip sync to the Kylie Minogue song. Mm-hmm. I thought Mohart looked better. Mohart looked like she could have been in the Kylie Minogue video.
Sure.
But Blue Hydrangea was like putting in overtime.
She's like, I'm hungry for this award.
And in that case, I feel like she deserved it because Blue Hydrangea the entire season was playing really hard.
Yes.
And I do appreciate that. And she made, that controversial choice to send home Pangina Heals. So I do respect that we got to watch for only 6 episodes. This one person tried the hardest to win.
She did, but, I think ultimately the one that probably deserved it might have been Pangina, had she made it. I also like Janie Jacquet.
I like Janie Jacquet a lot. I think Pangina deserved it.
Jimbo, I'm increasingly disappointed. Like, as a drag queen, stellar. As a human being, you can take him somewhere. I felt very bad for Pangina 'cause in that episode, I remember now, because Jimbo starts going in on Pangina for eliminating him, and it's just like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Get the fuck over yourself. I'm so tired of that.
True. Okay, moving on. Did you know Liza Minnelli is still alive?
Yes, I did.
Oh, I did it. Her birthday was recently, and it popped up on my thing.
You know who I was more surprised that was alive was the woman who voices Ursula, the Sea Witch, Pat O'Connor.
Yes.
Because she was born in 27. She's still with it.
And we were looking up photos of her, and she looks like a good time gal.
She does.
And she would, You know, my fantasy is to somehow make friends with like a old bitchy lady, and we can just like go sit and drink wine during the day and just be nasty and mean about everyone. Like that. She seems like someone who I could have done that with.
There are still people you can do that with.
I know. If there are any older women who just want to sit and be miserable with me and talk about everyone, I would love that. What's the worst food you ever ate?
Chicken feet in a Chinese restaurant, like an authentic chicken feet, like the dish where they bread them. And
Was that that was with your friend?
in Toronto, yeah.
Okay. This question popped up and I was like, let me think about it. And my mind always goes to when we were in Nebraska and we stopped at that Mexican restaurant.
That's not the worst food I've ever had. It was some of the blandest.
But when I think about that question, that is what pops up. Is we went to this Mexican restaurant that had a sign in like kind of rural Nebraska that said best Mexican food in Nebraska.
Oh, they were in the papers, darling.
And they had all these newspaper articles everywhere. And child, we ordered this food and every dish was the same, like 4 ingredients. Ground beef, canned red sauce that looked like when you buy the can of like enchilada sauce, the red one. And then tortilla and cheese. So those 4 ingredients, and everything they made was with those 4 ingredients.
Yes.
So enchiladas, tacos, burritos, everything looked the same. And then they had the nerve to have it on a big ass plate. And then I ordered a burrito, I believe.
This was a decade ago, and keep in mind that Joseph Robinson's memory.
And bitch, all I remember is that bland, just so much ground beef. They gave me like 2 pounds of ground beef.
Actually, now that in perspective, this was over a decade ago, and
Because I was thinking, I've had food that I didn't care for, but it was not like having chicken feet is like, well, I'm sure it was prepared in a way.
Yes.
And I am very reasonable when it comes to like if we go somewhere nice and if I order something, I want it served the way the chef intended. So I'm not going to make substitutions. And if it's too much for me, I just won't even order it. So, because I assume like, well, this must be delicious because an entire community of people love it. It's just I don't love whatever's in it. But yeah, when I think about the worst food I ever ate, that damn Mexican food in Nebraska, and I wish I could figure out what the name of that restaurant was because it is a travesty. Well, it's a hate crime. That restaurant was committing hate crimes with that damn food.
We'll never know again. I also had frog legs that were terrible in Minneapolis. A restaurant, but also, you know, they were, I believe, prepared how they're supposed to be, and I don't understand how, unless you're also a small animal, what the sustenance is from that. And then maybe paella in Cannes at one of those tourist restaurants that it was burnt to the bottom of the dish.
Can we take a quick break because I have to pee? Hold on.
Okay.
And we're back. Normally I would let you just talk for a minute, but the next thing I wanted to talk about, I think I need to be here with you.
Okay.
So the BAFTAs winners were announced, but I don't really care about those because it's not. I'm not in the UK.
But Sigourney Weaver has a BAFTA. We should care about the BAFTAs.
Do you want to say what she has her BAFTA for?
The Ice Storm.
Oh, I thought it was Snow Cake.
No. She was nominated for a Canadian Oscar, which I called the Genies, I believe. For that.
Okay. So, but then also the Critics' Choice Award winners were announced.
Okay.
Do you know who won?
No, I don't pay attention to those.
Oh, well, so so then I'm just going to name off some of the top ones and you tell me who you think won. So Best Picture.
Probably just Power of the Dog.
Power of the Dog did win. Mm-hmm. Oh, by the way, I know you've probably seen all of these. For Best Picture, The Power of the Dog, Belfast.
Yeah.
Coda.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is.
That won Sundance last year. It means Child of Deaf Adult.
Oh.
It's a remake of a French film with Marlee Matlin.
Don't Look Up.
Ugh.
I can't believe that was nominated for Best Picture.
I can.
I know people found it amusing on some level, but I can't believe. Dune.
Okay.
King Richard.
Okay.
Licorice Pizza.
Yeah.
Nightmare Alley.
Oh, yes.
Tick, Tick, Boom.
Okay.
And West Side Story.
Yeah.
Okay. Who do you think won for Best Actor?
Was it Will Smith?
Yes.
Okay.
Who do you think won for Best Actress?
Was it Nicole Kidman? Kristen Stewart?
No, they were nominated, but Jessica Chastain won.
Oh, for Eyes of Tammy Faye.
Yeah.
Okay.
Olivia Colman was nominated. I would, okay, I've seen The Eyes of Tammy Faye, The Lost Daughter, House of Gucci, Being the Ricardos. I have not seen Licorice Pizza or Spencer, so I can't say who I think I should have won, but you've seen all of those. Who of that group, who do you think should have won?
You know, this is an interesting year for Best Actress if you care about, you know, this type of stuff, because all of the awards have kind of given different lady, you know, the upper hand, it would seem. Of those that deserve that, from that, I don't know. I would probably give it, if I was in control of the world, several of those people would be nominated. But I would give it to maybe Nicole.
Okay.
Kristen Stewart's good as Diana. These billboards in LA where somebody from Variety said that her performance is a gift to cinema is a little over the top, darling. But yeah, she's good in it.
Okay, and then I'll just name who's nominated for Best Supporting Actor. So it's Troy Kotsur,
I bet he won.
Jamie Dornan, Ciarán Hinds? Kieran Hines?
You know him. He was Sigourney's husband in Political Animals.
Oh, I don't recall. Jared Leto. Oh, wow. I can't believe that's a thing. J.K. Simmons and Cody Smith-McPhee.
I bet it was either Cody or Troy Kotsur.
Troy won.
For Coda, okay.
Okay, for Best Supporting Actress, nominees were Ariana DeBose, Catriona Balfe,
from Belfast,
Ann Dowd.
Oh, for Mass, okay.
Kirsten Dunst. Oh, I'm about to tear this up. Ingenue Ellis.
You know who that is.
I'm not quite sure.
I talk about how great she is all the time. Plus, the Sigourney connection with her is a map of the world.
Okay. And Rita Moreno.
Okay.
Who do you think won?
Out of that, probably DeBose.
Yeah.
For West Side Story.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the Afro-Latino lady.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Beautiful. Yeah, but she is.
She was my favorite part of that movie.
Yeah.
So, but, and then of course I haven't seen all of these movies, so I can't say.
Okay.
And then for Best Director.
Probably Jane Campion.
So it was Jane Campion, yeah.
You know, she's the first woman to be nominated twice for Best Director at the Academy Awards.
Oh.
She was nominated for The Piano, of course, did not win. The first woman to be nominated at the Oscars was Lena Wertmüller for Seven Beauties. So I think Campion was the second. Sofia Coppola was the third. And I think the distinction with Coppola was she's the first American woman to be nominated for Best Director. And then you know who won.
Who?
Catherine Bigelow for The Hurt
Locker.
The
Hurt Locker. But you know...
and Chloe Zhao, of course, won for Nomadland.
Jane Campion was asked about
okay.
Sam Elliott's comments, and she said, I think Sam, what can I say? I'm sorry. He was being a little bit of a bitch. And I'm sorry to say it, but he's not a cowboy. He's an actor. And the West is a mythic space, and there's a lot of room on the range. Mm-hmm. And you know, I think it's a little bit sexist because you think about the number of amazing Westerns that were made in Spain by Sergio Leone. I mean, I consider myself a creator, and I think he sees me as a woman or something less at first, and I don't appreciate that. You know what, girl? You better go off because... You is right.
I was so upset to hear that what he said on Mark Maron's podcast about going off about Power of the Dog. I get that you might not like the film, or you know, homosexuality might make you uncomfortable, sir. But shut the fuck up. That lady
was telling a story.
Yes, like who's to say she can't?
Who's to say she can't? And there are so many like sci-fi. I mean, all of this shit is fiction anyway. Like, people are just making up stories and setting them in certain backgrounds. Well, I can't believe.
It's also, do you think there were no homosexuals in the Old West, sir? Trust there were. Like, that to me, it's just like that. That's the irritation. It's like people want the continued erasure of our kind of those kind of narratives.
And you know, if I give him the benefit of the doubt, it's just like he's just an old crunchy man who has a certain idea of what things should be like, and whether I agree with it or not, it's like he can have his opinion.
Sure, he can.
But what's more powerful to me is that this lady let him know that he does not make any damn sense.
I mean, isn't that great? I mean, yeah, I love Jane Campion, but you know, where is, you know, because Sam Elliott still, I believe, is married to Catherine Ross. Where is Ms. Ross in this? Did she have an opinion about her
Someone
husband's
needs
dumb
to
comments?
talk to him.
Because Catherine Ross, that was a favorite as a child. Stepford Wives, Graduate, of course. I love her little role in Donnie Darko.
Well, so films that were released that we didn't cover. We covered a lot of movies, so I don't know.
I think we did everything, well, except for Fear, which was the Bulgarian selection for, which I was interested in, but we didn't watch that.
All right, so the movies we watched for fun. I didn't watch any of these, but the Niall Hilton incident.
That's not true. You watched one. Yes, I watched that in preparation for our review of The Contractor, starring Chris Pine. Tarek Salah's previous film, The Niall Hilton Incident, won, I think, the World Cinema Dramatic Award at Sundance in 2017, and I never saw it. But it was good. I liked it. Faris Faris is the lead. I liked it much better than The Contractor, I think, which wasn't bad, but...
Love Affair?
Yeah, I have to review that for Criterion. Leo McCarey's 1939 classic, Love Affair, starring Irene Dunne and Charles Boyer, which was... the remake is probably better known by Leo McCarey as An Affair to Remember with Deborah Carr and Cary Grant from 1957. Which I feel like you're familiar with the story, even if you haven't seen these films, about two lovers that meet on a boat. They're both with somebody else, and they decide to meet in 6 months in New York at the top of the Empire State Building at this time and date, where they will, propose, solidify their marriage plans. And right before the meeting happens, she gets hit by a taxi and becomes paralyzed. And so he waits around, and then eventually runs into her again, and realizes what happened, and it has kind of a hopeful ending. But anyway, I've never seen the original, which I did quite like. It's much shorter. It's only 88 minutes, and An Affair to Remember is almost 2 hours. So I actually watched all three versions of this film this week in preparation for writing that Blu-ray review, including the 1994 remake with Warren Beatty and Annette Bening, who of course were married, which gave Katharine Hepburn her final screen role.
I'm looking at the word affair, and you know how you look at a word and it's like that can't be how it's spelled.
Affair?
Yeah. That does not seem like that would be how you spell the word affair. But I don't know how else I would spell it.
Like Efair?
No, I don't know. That just looking at the spelling of this word, it looks so weird. But anyway, okay, projects of interest.
Oh wait, there were other things we watched for fun.
You only listed these three, unless you're talking about The Perfect Husband and Working Class Heroes.
Yeah, those are on there too.
We watched those?
Well, Working Class Heroes, let me talk about Jasna Juracek from Quo Vadis Aida. She had a film that was at the Berlinale that I had a screener for that I forgot about, called Working Class Heroes. And I watched that, and it was funny to see her kind of made up. And she reminds me a little bit of Diane Wiest in that film. But a friend was telling us that Working Class Heroes took 10 years to film. It kept running out of money, so they'd film a scene or two here or there. So considering that it's a cohesive film is interesting, but it was just so-so. But The Perfect Husband, the Lacey Peterson story.
Oh, shit. That's the one I watched.
Yes.
With Dean Cain.
Yeah.
How did we even come upon that?
We were sitting at home, chilling, feeling good, and you were looking for something. And
when I'm feeling good, I want to watch movies about someone killing their spouse.
Murder shows.
That felt really good to me that day. Go ahead.
Oh, boy. Well, if that's how you want to look at it. Amazon had listed it as being in 1993, and I said, that's impossible. This movie was made in...
That's what caught our attention,
Yeah.
is that it was listed as a 1993 film, and it was confusing, so we turned it on.
And then just kind of got wrapped up in it. Because I was graduating from high school when all of that was going down.
Yeah, and I was moving to Minnesota.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I very much remember Lacey Peterson in the tabloids and Scott Peterson.
So... Initial impressions, it feels very much like a TV movie.
It is.
The production quality and the acting is oh boy.
Oh,
except
that camera work.
Yes. But Dean Cain.
Oh, yeah, he was...
Looking at him was he really is giving me Scott Peterson from what I remember back when we would get all the footage from him. So that was kind of creepy. But yeah, I'm not going to say it was a good movie. I wouldn't even say it was riveting.
No.
But I did become engrossed with the thing.
And then Dee Wallace Stone is giving a
Oh,
performance.
yes. So she also gives a performance.
And I love Dee Wallace Stone. Well, she might be back to Dee Wallace now, but
The actor playing Scott Peterson's like best friend who's like defending him.
oh god, yeah, that was uncomfortable.
Yeah, if you have Amazon Prime, check out The Perfect Husband, whatever it's called, the murder of Lacey Peterson.
Lacey Peterson
The Lacey Peterson story. That was pretty entertaining. Okay, so projects of interest. Is Rob Zombie remaking or doing a version of The Munsters?
Yes, and Cassandra Peterson, aka Elvira, has signed on.
She won't be playing Morticia Addams.
No, she's the
not
matronly
Morticia.
one.
That's the Addams family. Who's the?
She'll be playing the Barbara, I think.
Oh, I'm very interested.
They haven't cast Marilyn yet.
I'm very interested in that.
Yeah, although Rob Zombie, and of course his wife is in it, Sherry Moon Zombie. But the fact that Elvira's in it, yes.
Firebrand, Kareem Anous.
Okay, Kareem Anous is a queer Brazilian director who has a lot of films I've quite liked. He was just a jury member at the Berlinale, although some of those awards, whoever was responsible for the Best Actress in Screenplay Award at Berlinale this year, you should be ashamed. Anyway, Kareem Anous is doing a new project. White Michelle Williams, was just replaced with Alicia Vikander, playing the last wife of King Henry VIII. I believe the one that survived in that poem, with Jude Law playing the dilapidated king. That sounds very interesting to me, especially from this director, because I think he's quite adept at women's stories.
I want to give a shout out, speaking of Henry VIII. I got a chance to see, and I don't know if I've talked about this, but a production of that show Six, which is on Broadway, about Henry VIII's six wives. Mm-hmm. It was excellent. It was excellent. If there's a touring production in your area, you should go see it. Yeah, that's all.
Oh yeah, I mean, Henry VIII was transfixing to me as a child, and I remember I got in the local paper for making some art project we had to do where we had to make these large scale historical figures, and I did Henry VIII with a lot of help from my mother, and that got placed in the paper. But
well, moving on to the obituary section. Unfortunately, there are two entries, one of which is really bothered me when I read it, and the other one, I'm not sure who this person is.
The other one bothered me too. Yes, you do know who he is.
Well, let's start with William Hurt, because I couldn't tell you anything about William Hurt.
Well, he's been in 3.
Because I was confusing him with John Hurt.
No.
And I only know the one who played the little queer looking one.
John Hurt.
So I'm more familiar with John Hurt. Like what he looks like.
Sure.
But I couldn't tell you who William Hurt is.
Well, that's a travesty because his Oscar-winning performance for Kiss of the Spider Woman was one of the few things that I got to see that was flamboyant and gay as a kid.
All I know about Kiss of the Spider Woman is that Vanessa Williams played the lead character on Broadway.
It's not the lead character. Oh. She played the Spider Woman, which is Sonia Braga in the film, which is...
Oh, then I don't even know what the story's about then.
It's about 2 men locked up in a Brazilian prison, and William Hurt's character is gay.
So who's the lead character, William Hurt?
William Hurt and Raul Julia.
Oh, from the Addams Family?
Yeah.
Oh. Well, he's dead.
Yes, since 1994.
He died young.
Yeah, I think he had a heart thing, if I remember. Anyway, I can't believe you haven't seen that, but that is must-see viewing to me. I think, who directed that? Hector Babenco. Anyway, William Hurt, you do know him. He's been in 3 Sigourney Weaver productions.
Which are?
Eyewitness.
I don't remember that.
Where he plays...
There's a poster of it in our guest room.
Yeah, that's
all I know.
You don't remember he plays the janitor that says he saw a murder so he can get close to the news anchor that he finds attractive?
Nope.
And then the killer starts coming after him? Mm-mm. Okay, you've seen it. The Village.
I know The Village.
He's the one that has a thing with Sigourney, even though he's married to someone else in The Village.
I know Sigourney's in it. Mm-hmm. I know Joaquin Phoenix is in it. Mm-hmm. I know Opie's daughter is in it.
Bryce Dallas, yeah.
Okay. But I don't know who he is.
Adrian Brody is in that. Anyway.
He is? Oh, he plays a special needs person.
Yes, he does. Which, you know what, I remember, because I follow every project very closely. I want to say, initially Ashton Kutcher was announced in that role or something crazy.
Oh, wow.
That would have been a mess. Anyway, and then
What's the third one?
Vantage Point.
Nope.
Where he plays
I
the
know
president.
Forrest Whitaker's in it.
Dennis Quaid,
I couldn't tell you
Zoe
that.
Saldana.
Definitely didn't know that.
Okay, well, all those people are.
Well, so you have a top 5 William Hurt list.
I think there might be more like 7, but
So you put top 5, but then you listed 7 movies.
like he.
How does that make sense?
I felt. Again, it's like Ivan Reitman dying. It's like wow, it just.
But he was old.
William Hurt was he's 71.
Oh, he wasn't that old.
Right. It just, I don't know. This might be a secret film sometime because it is a favorite. His debut was in Ken Russell's Altered States.
Well, let's go through your top 7. So Kiss of the Spider-Woman you talked about.
Yeah.
Altered States.
Yeah, Ken Russell film, excellent. I believe it's 1980. Ken Russell's you're familiar with because The Devils is in my top 10 of all time.
Okay.
Which you've seen.
Okay.
And didn't we just watch? Oh, we watched The Lair of the White Worm. That's a Ken Russell film.
I would recommend that movie
Yeah. So it.
for fun.
Yes, Altered States is a lot of fun. And anyhow.
Body Heat.
You've also seen Body Heat. We watched that with a friend in Minnesota. It's a remake of Double Indemnity, of course, directed by Lawrence Kasdan, William Hurt, and Kathleen Turner.
I don't recall.
Oh, it's excellent. That role was offered to Sigourney Weaver, who turned it down.
Broadcast News.
I just watched this for the first time a few months ago with William Hurt and Albert Brooks and Holly Hunter. If you like Network, I'd suggest watching Broadcast News. You'd like it.
Eyewitness, of course. Children of a Lesser God.
That's which Marlee Matlin won her Oscar for, over Sigourney Weaver for Aliens, which is slightly disappointing. But that's a great film too. And you know the other thing about William Hurt is he had a very violent, abusive relationship with Marlee Matlin. I think cocaine was used a lot. Marlee Matlin in her memoirs infamously said that. She has to turn away anytime she sees him on screen or anything because I think they had but they starred together in that movie and they had a relationship. He also had a kid with Sandrine Bonnaire, the French actress. You're familiar with her from La Cérémonie with Isabelle Huppert. She played the illiterate one with the bangs.
No. Yeah. It's coming back to me.
Okay, yeah.
Isabel's young.
Well, 94.
They kill some people.
They killed a family that...
Okay, yes, I do remember that movie.
Yes, but he had a child with Sandrine Bonnaire, which I thought was interesting. And he appears in several French films. He did a film with Catherine Deneuve called Nearest to Heaven.
You have Alice on here? Is that with Keke Palmer?
No, God, no.
Oh.
Sorry to this woman, but Keke Palmer's Alice is terrible, which comes out next week. No, this is the 1990 Woody Allen movie starring Mia Farrow, and William Hurt is in that, and I do quite like that film.
Well, goodbye, William Hurt. The person who passed who really made me feel a way is Traci Braxton.
Yeah, that was shocking.
Traci Braxton is Toni Braxton's sister. I think there are 6 siblings, and Traci was the second oldest because Tony's the oldest.
In my mind, I always thought Traci was the oldest.
But Traci was 50. She died from esophageal cancer. So I watched, and so did you, but I watched all of Braxton Family Values, which was their reality TV show.
Can't tell you what those values are, but yes.
And, famously in the first 2 seasons, like every reality show, like Real Housewives, where each character comes up on the intro credit and they have a tagline. And Tracy's for the first 2 seasons was that she was kind of like a wannabe it was not positive. Mm-hmm. And that was a big point of contention in her storyline for the first 2 seasons of that reality show. And then they ended up switching it up to cast her in a more positive light. But she had harbored a lot of negative feelings towards her sisters because when Toni Braxton, they all sang and they all had aspirations except the brother to be singers. So they, made demo tapes and they went and saw record executives, and they did get a record deal, all of the sisters except Toni. So Toni got her own thing going on, and then the rest of the sisters got a deal. But then Tracy became pregnant, and they just left her in the dust. that was her sentiment. So she always felt like she was kind of like the black sheep, as she would say, or the dark horse. I don't know. She said some phrase all the time, but because her other sisters went off to make an album, and then the youngest Tamar had more of a career, and then the three sisters, Trina, Tawanda, and Tamar, for years and years have sang backup for Tony.
Yeah.
So Traci was always sort of like on the side. But Traci got married. She'd been married, I think when she passed, she'd been married for 25 years. She had a child. She ran a beauty salon. And I always thought she seemed really, really sweet.
Yeah.
You know, kind of like a fighter.
Well, especially compared to Tamar, and then Trina. From what I remember, Trina's storyline is like,
well, her Canadian accent.
yes, that interesting accent, and then that.
How did a black lady from the DMV end up with a Canadian accent?
And then her poor husband going through the ringer. I remember feeling like, could you just like make an honest attempt to get back with that man or leave him alone?
I know that was an awkward.
That was awkward, and then Tawanda just.
Poor Tawanda.
But yeah, Traci always felt like she was fighting to be seen, I think.
But she was only 50, which, it feels very close. Like, I don't feel that far from 50. So it's like, gosh, she's so young. And
yeah, that's why when you said it was shocking.
And then looking at her son posted a photo of her and of him like close to her final days. And she was sitting in like a chair and looked kind of sickly, and she was kind of puffy, I'm assuming, from treatments. And so that was sad to see, but yeah. And I'm sure that her family is devastated.
Oh, yeah.
Because she went through her treatment and her diagnosis very silently. So it's like a surprise that she was even sick, let alone having passed. But
she was involved in that episode of Ayanla, right?
Yeah.
Which, of course, Tamar stole all the energy all the time.
She did suck up all the energy. Okay, well, moving on to our topic. So last week, I think we talked about the Netflix series Worst Roommate Ever. And it's a docuseries with 5 episodes. And we watched the first one, Call Me Grandma, which was about a woman named Dorothea Puente. So we talked about her. But we ended up finishing the series and watching the remaining 4 episodes, which revolve around 3 people. Because one of those people gets 2 episodes to himself. So I thought maybe we should talk about that, because we had a lot of conversations around the show, because our last house was a 5-bedroom house. So we decided to rent rooms in our house, primarily because we had a friend already living with us who had said that he would move in with us in our new house. So that was great because we liked him living with us. So it was a nice transition. And then you decided to go back to grad school, and we weren't sure if you would have to quit working in order to complete grad school.
Good news is I didn't.
Very fortunately, you didn't have to do that. But in preparation for that, we thought, well, let's rent, the other rooms. And there was a point in time when we were renting 4 of the rooms in our house.
There could be a sitcom about that living situation. But
it was kind of wild. I mean, ultimately, it ended up being very beneficial because we ended up, people weren't living there for free. So we ended up with a lot of extra money that we used for other things and, set us up nicely for where we are now. And so it worked out well. But we can talk about that after we talk about some of these episodes. So episode 2 is called Be Careful of the Quiet Ones. And that one was about a man named Casey Joy. So he was an older Asian gentleman who moved in with this younger Latina lady, and he became obsessed with her. And they lived in Orange, California, which is, in Southern California. And he ended up becoming so infatuated with her that he spent like $10,000 on plastic surgery to look younger. Like he got facelift and eye lift and all that. And then he started dressing differently and ingratiating himself into her family because he really saw her as like an option for him. And then one day she rejects him and it does not go well. And we get a 911 recording of her calling saying, just so y'all know, I had to tell my roommate he needs to leave. and his reaction to me really scared me. So if I end up having to hurt him, I want y'all to know why. And then cut to, she goes missing.
Oh, God.
I
didn't watch this episode.
You didn't see this one. But the gag is, of course he's a suspect because he lived with her, but there was no evidence. And then they have all the footage of him being interrogated, and he even has scratches all over his arms. And the detectives are like, so where did these scratches come from? And this man had, first of all, he was probably like in his 50s, but he had lived for 30 years in the United States. So everyone who knew him was like, he spoke perfect English with no accent. But when those police interrogated him, all of a sudden it was like, I'm fresh off the boat. Like, okay. I don't speak English. So of course, like, people who knew him, who were watching the video, were like, it was so creepy that all of a sudden he doesn't understand English. But when they asked him about those scratches, he had an answer for everything. He's like, oh, I go fishing at this one lake, and there are these specific kind of like plants that have these thorns, and like I went, like I cast my line and got caught in the bushes, so when I took it out, I scratched my arms. So of course the detectives go investigate, and they're like, yeah, actually, like it's very possible that he would have got those scratches from those thorns. But what got him hemmed up is
If There Be Thorns by V.C. Andrews.
What got him hemmed up is because of course they were watching him, and this fool would go to the public library and check out a laptop, and the police had a search warrant such that their IT literally could, you know how you can view like someone's monitor, like how my IT can control my computer and see everything. They were doing that, and they had recorded everything he was searching. So he's searching shit like, how long does it take for a body to decay? All this shit. But the detectives were like, it's not enough to arrest him because these are legitimate questions someone might ask if they know like someone they care about's missing. Like, these are curious questions. But then what got him hemmed up is this fool gets on Google Maps after it's announced that they're having a memorial, like a remembrance for this lady at this one trail in like a park somewhere, like a hiking trail, because the lady who went missing used to hike like at Runyon. It wasn't Runyon, but let's just say,
sure.
Okay. So
Kenneth Hahn.
Kenneth Hahn. So it's announced on Facebook that they're going to have a remembrance for her. And he was very active in the Facebook group chat about how much he missed her and all this stuff. They record him looking up the address of where the remembrance is, like on this trail. So they see him look it up, and we can see it too, that he looks it up. And then he goes to satellite view so he can see the actual terrain. So where the remembrance is starting is like on a main road near the trail. And then you see this motherfucker sort of like move the map into like sort of a more secluded wooded area. And then zooms in on this like specific patch of trees.
And that's where she is.
And then X's out of it and deletes the history. So of course immediately the police are like, we're taking our ass down. Yeah. And they go, and guess whose body is right there?
Wow.
And then that's how he gets caught. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that's crazy. Well, you know, also that trick, sir, doesn't work. I would believe in this day and age, going to the public library and thinking that there's no way to track what you're looking at.
This was during the Ask Jeeves era. So this was not 2020.
Oh, shit.
Yes. Okay. So this was before I think people understood how... It probably was even more transparent then than it is now. Like, now that people know how to... I'm not a tech person, so I don't know the language, but I'm sure there are ways people know how to be black on the internet, you know, like unseen. But back then, it's like, yeah, you think, oh, I just checked out a library laptop, no one's gonna know. Girl. So, yeah. Okay, episode 3 is called Marathon Man, and it's about a guy named Yusuf Kader, who would also go by an alias of Joseph Maria, which we laughed at because my name's Joseph and my mom's name is Maria. But do you want to talk about Joseph Kader? His story?
No, I don't quite remember.
You don't remember. So
so that's where it starts out with a young woman, a white woman who wanted to be abroad and goes to Chile. And
she goes to Chile, but let's describe Yusuf Kader. So he says he's Pakistani.
No, Palestinian.
Oh, sorry. Palestinian. I'm sorry.
he lives in Denmark, but he's Palestinian.
He says.
Is his story, and he has this property in Chile, where all these people from all over the world are renting. It's like a hostel, I believe.
Oh, he owns the hostel?
I thought he did. Maybe
I don't
not.
know that he
Maybe
owns the
not.
hostel. No, he owned another. He said he owned other real estate.
He said. Okay, that was
okay. So Yusuf Cater. So he is a con man. So we find out that he has convinced this Palestinian organization in Denmark that he wants to run a marathon in Brazil, and they need to raise like $30,000.
He's asking them to be a sponsor.
He wants to be a sponsor. So he convinces them, and they raise money, not enough, not 30,000. They give him like less than half, but he takes it and goes. Mm-hmm. And then when he's in Brazil running the marathon, all of a sudden he says he's disqualified because of an injury, and he convinces the group that it's because they're racist and all this shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Against Palestinians.
Against Palestinians. Also, Yusuf Cater is... Some photos he looked like a handsome man. Then some photos he was kind of like swarthy. I don't know. I could see how in some... Well, for the ladies in question, I can see how they found him attractive.
Sure.
To me, I mean, you'd have to catch him at the right angle, because sometimes he looked kind of like, you thought this man was something, but he just looked like I wouldn't trust his ass.
Sure.
He had like a tribal tattoo out, but anyway,
just so you know, Yusuf, you would not have conned Joseph.
Yeah, you might fool most, but you certainly wouldn't have fooled me. So then he goes to Chile and convinces other people because he runs a marathon there, and convinces those Palestinian people to give him money again. Then he convinces some other guy who's part of the race to like invest in property with him, and then ends up stealing his money. Ultimately, he owes people money. He assaults 2 people.
All the people in the hostel with him, I believe he owes them a
Yes.
large amount of money.
Yeah, so he's just a hustler. But everything culminates with one of the women he assaulted. Like he leaves her for dead. He takes her to an abandoned like warehouse.
He fools her. There are so many red flags. These poor little white women. Anyway, he leads her to this burned out garage, like a car garage, and then assaults her and basically wraps her up in a tarp and leaves her for dead.
Which was creepy.
It's really creepy. But she makes her way out of it, her eyes burning with all the chemicals in there, has been bashed over the head.
Goes back to
the hostel.
And he's there. And and the way they recount the story is like she's telling everyone, he tried to kill me. But then he convinces everyone like she's crazy, she's at the hospital, and then he suddenly leaves saying his mom died. But what gets him hemmed up is the lady who he attacked wrapped in the tarp. She finds an attorney who's willing to work pro bono to help her. And ultimately he gets hemmed up.
Yeah.
Okay. Lastly, there are 2 episodes. The final 2 episodes are called Roommate Wanted, and it's about a guy named Jameson Bachman. Do you want to talk about Jameson Bachman?
Oh, okay. I'm trying to think of what happened now, though.
So it revolves around... So he's a serial squatter.
Serial squatter. Yeah, it's
Remember he knew all the laws about squatting?
That's right. I'm trying to... and it also starts out with, I think, this white woman in... Is it Philadelphia?
Somewhere.
And she... Basically, her mother is helping to pay for her rent, and she introduces the story of she needed a roommate because her roommate moved out and her mom was on her ass. And on Craigslist, this guy answered, and he moved in. They met for coffee. Everything seemed fine. They let their dogs meet, and then she gives him the keys, makes him sign something, and then all of a sudden he shows up with not just a dog but a cat and fish, and then starts to slowly take over her space, like in a very insidious, manipulative way, is what I remember. And then come to find he has a history of doing this.
So yeah, the bulk of the 2 episodes is sort of like how he took advantage of several people, knowing he was very familiar with the law, like rental laws, and basically like once you allow someone into your home and they start receiving mail, and
you can't get them out.
You can't get, like, you just can't evict someone. It's illegal. You can't just change the locks.
So we go back further in time, of course, to two other women. One that he was romantically involved with, and that actually spent 4 years with him, and he stole her cats by the time she finally got rid of him. And then another one who was I felt the worst for, a lesbian named Sonia.
I believe that's right.
Who she had broken up with her partner, but had purchased
her dream home,
her dream condo, and then she
ended up foreclosing on it because of him.
But that situation,
that was
because she had him in there, and he started screwing her over and not paying her. But she desperately needed this money, so she allowed another woman to come live at the same time there in a tent
in the living room. She put up a tent
with cats.
And let this woman who had 2 cats live in her living room in a tent.
And he had those other cats.
She was so desperate. But, ultimately, the one, oh my God, the main lady who's talking.
Alex.
Alex,
mm-hmm.
She's a little crazy. I shouldn't use the word crazy. She seems like she has, like, emotional issues. Or she's drunk. Didn't she seem affected?
She seemed affected. She was, let me just say, she was unpleasant to listen
to. But she's successful in evicting him.
Yeah.
He ends up going to jail for violating like a order of protection. His brother has to bail him out, but the brother won't let him live with him.
He strangled her, though.
Yeah. So he ends up going to jail, this Jameson Bachman guy. And then Jameson's brother bails him out, but won't let him live with him because he knows his brother is on some bullshit and has like anger issues. So Jameson kills his brother.
Yeah, ultimately, yeah.
And then goes to jail, but then before his trial, he hangs himself.
Yes.
So he commits suicide. The end. Okay. So relating to the series, while I did watch all of these and they were engrossing to a point, I don't know if Netflix is trying to just pump out content, but the quality of this shit, the production value was so poor.
I really needed... they did this thing across the 3 episodes I watched where they photographed these people being interviewed. They filmed them like at the site of where things happen, and there's always like the wind blowing through their hair, and they have their arms crossed, and there's the slow pan.
Yes, there's a lot of fluff,
like there's all this like seriousness to build tension, and that shit gets.
It's annoying. Not so you know what it is. I think that these docu-series have no investigative quality to them,
right?
Or no investigative integrity, like. I'm a lay person watching a story I'd never heard of. And it's like I'm sitting here I have so many questions. Mm-hmm. And none of those are being answered. But then you have time to do these, like you mentioned, these bullshit ass shots that are like, no, answer some of these questions. I have a million questions about how this happened and where did this person go. It just feels like these things are being produced at breakneck speed. And
I really needed a Robert Stack type character to come in there and be like...
Yes, there needed to be a narrator.
Update.
Something. But, this series is in conjunction with Blumhouse Television. So...
There were intriguing things.
There are intriguing things.
The Dorothea one, I think, was the most fascinating.
I think the best one is episode 1, Call Me Grandma. But, again, I watched all of them. It was engrossing, but then getting back to just the topic of roommates, it's really easy to watch things like this and go, she's so stupid. How could she blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you really don't know.
Sure. And,
we've had how many people live with us over the years? Like a number of people. And it's like, we really didn't know these people. Well, maybe one. We knew one mm-hmm. who I felt comfortable with.
Yeah.
But the others were strangers, effectively, when we first met them.
They came in, they were interviewed, and
it's just like, people can say all the right things, and they can provide you with whatever, but it's like, at the end of the day...
And it's looking back on some of them where there were behavioral kind of issues that came up. If you look back on it, you did see red flags about some of them. There would be people that be like, oh, that's curious. You don't have any social media. Okay. Drama seems to follow you, in their background stories, in the details they would give, you could still see a pattern.
Yes, that's right. Looking back on some people who were, because I did have to ask 2 people to leave.
You sure did.
And yes, you're right. Looking back, it's like, oh, that's curious that you Yeah. Because one person always felt like they were being watched, and they were always like they painted this picture like they were just so desirable that everywhere they go, people harassed them.
Somebody's following me home.
And
like, let me tell you right now, no, they're not.
No, they weren't. They were looking like they were hoping you were going to move your car so they could park there. That's what they were doing.
This was also a person that thought he was on. You know what I think really worried me was a couple weeks after this person moved in and claimed to be on a personal friend of
Lady Gaga and was calling her Stephanie.
Yeah. I was like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, yes, in hindsight, but I think, I don't want to shame, like, watching the series, of course we're rolling our eyes and laughing, but it's like, you really don't know people.
No, and
even we were out a few weeks ago, and I was talking to someone about, like, when you date people, do you check their ID? Mm-hmm. And it's like, some of y'all are out here, like, letting people ejaculate inside of you on a regular basis. You're giving them access to all of your personal shit because you let them stay in your house. Like, and you didn't even verify their name. Mm-hmm. You've never seen their identification. You've never checked their background. You've never checked to see they work where they say they work. Like, you don't know how much money they make. There are couples who don't, like, they've been together for a while and they have never, because they haven't purchased anything together. It's like, you've never even seen your significant other's ID. Mm-hmm. You don't know what they make every 2 weeks or however you get paid. Like you don't know. Mm-hmm. And it's just kind of fascinating that we will allow people into our lives, like a roommate situation. And we've been very fortunate that we didn't get killed or whatever, or robbed, or, there were never any like super bad anything.
No.
And most of it was pleasant and beneficial, but
interesting. There's a social experiment. We were a little gay mecca in a certain area,
and yeah, but it is scary to think that people can become so involved in your life, and you really have no, well, in this case for this docuseries, no recourse. Like, the law protects people in a way that could make a situation like a bad roommate just go on forever.
And it's too bad there wasn't kind of an episode featuring homosexuals, because there are specific things to living with gay men that gay men do that are risky behaviors that kind of give a heightened sense of being unsettled as well.
Well, I think you're talking about gay culture and like hookup.
Well, yeah,
like hookup culture.
Just having people over to your house that you don't know at all. Like really.
Well, that's an I mean, yeah, many people, and I don't know, maybe a lot of people do this, but I only am most familiar with gay men, and I think, like, yeah, for gay men, it's very common to invite a stranger over, someone you have no clue who they are,
have not met in public,
have never met in public, you've only seen photos they've sent you, and you will invite them over to your home at odd hours mm-hmm. to have sex with you. Mm-hmm. And that happens a lot. Mm-hmm. And I think, that was something that I was very concerned about, having people in our house.
Oh, because that was happening, yeah.
And it was happening. And it was just kind of like, you don't know this person. But it is an interesting thing to think about, because the culture also supports that behavior, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like, you'll introduce someone, like if you hook up with someone and then your friends happen to bump into them or whatever, you introduce them like they're your friend or you mm-hmm. know them, and it's like, but you don't, mm-hmm. and we're never going to see them again. And yet it's like this sort of accepted thing that this is normal.
There was one person that was egregiously, like, it was confusing to me, because a lot of people, I think it was at the fifth or sixth friend or brother that I was like, oh, by this he means you don't know him at all. But
yeah, so we started to learn that, there was one person who would hook up with a lot of people, would have a lot of new people over.
Yeah.
And he would refer to them as either his friend or his brother. Mm-hmm. And then we started to learn that friend meant rando hookup. Yeah. And brother meant friend.
Yeah.
But initially we were like, oh, this is like your family.
Yeah.
But then it became like, and then one time one of them was Asian and this person was not Asian. So then I was really confused, like, oh, Like you're not adopted. What?
It reminded me of when I first went to college at university, and there was a very there was a frat house on campus, and I remember it was the first week, and I went to a frat party, and then all of these men going like, "Oh, I'm so and so, and this is my brother," and it took me a couple clicks to be like, "Oh, they mean." I'm not, because I remember being like, "Oh, your brother's here too? How interesting!"
Right. It was
like,
very confusing.
No.
But yeah, after a while, realizing like, oh, this is sort of code, and it's substantial that there are a lot of people. Mm-hmm. It is interesting because I think it creates this environment where, I don't have many friends at all, but
there was another renter. Sorry, go with.
No, I was just gonna say, even though I don't have many friends, the few friends I do have and people I've known, like, it creates this environment where it's like, oh, you're introducing me to someone who you're quote unquote dating, and over time I've just learned to kind of not be invested in people, mm-hmm. In the people who I consider my friends, I'm invested in them, but meaning like when they start dating people or they bring people around, it's like, well, I'm not going to really even try to remember your name mm-hmm. until maybe y'all sign a lease somewhere, because it's like, yeah, people just introduce people like like you just had sex with this stranger who you bumped into again, and now it's like you're introducing them to me like they mean something to you. And I don't think people realize, like, over time, it just creates a portrait of an individual that's like not necessarily favorable, because mm-hmm. you seem, I like the word flitty. I don't know what it means, but
flitty.
But you seem flitty, like, okay. But you were going to say there's another person.
There was another renter. There's another rent.
Oh, can we talk about that? Because sometimes I would always feel like, because people would say like, oh, that's your roommate. And it's like, well, this person rents a room in the house I own.
I'm the landowner, thank you.
Yeah. But anyway, there was another person.
Well, somebody got really offended that I said that I corrected them once. That I was like, no, I'm the landlord technically. And they were like, I don't like that. It's like, well, I don't. Okay, well, I'm not bothered that you don't. Anyway, there was a person who was very sketchy about their background, as it comes to find, and things didn't always add up in their timeline. But he was dating somebody, so we met the boyfriend, blah, blah, blah. And then this other man started showing up randomly all the time. And some days the boyfriend and this new man would like barely
cross paths. That was very stressful.
And it was clear that the boyfriend number one didn't know about the other much older one, and there were strange mix-ups sometimes. Like this renter bought them both cologne for Christmas, and then mixed up who got what.
I will say that living in that situation for 4.5 years really provided me, because I do have a lot of experience with gay men, but then I think our living situation for that 4.5 years, it, like you said, it was a really interesting experiment, because we got to see, it's just interesting watching people like in their natural habitat, right? Because gay men in particular present in a very interesting way. Mm-hmm. And then they, just like experiencing how people live and the way they operate, and particularly when it comes to friends and romance. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, you don't seem to put a lot of effort into these things. Right. So then it's like, the let you tell it, it's just so hard to this and that. And it's like, but you don't really
let you tell it you're a Jane Austen heroine, and really...
But really, you kind of just...
You're just a slag.
You kind of just hang out, and then you just hook up with randos all the time. Like, I mean, that's why you haven't accomplished much in the romance department.
Mm-hmm. Well, no romance without finance, but...
Wow. What do you want to say something?
The definition of flitty?
Yeah, what does flitty mean?
Flitty, the archaic definition as an adjective, is unstable and fluttering. But the second definition is ostentatiously homosexual.
Oh, so I am correct.
Not just homosexual.
Ostentatiously homosexual. Yeah. So it would be, I'm glad that there were a lot of benefits to that living situation for the time we did it. Monetary benefits, and also meeting some sweet people, and like having, there were many times when it was nice having someone there, right, to talk to hang out
Well,
with.
you know what it does? It's a blessing and a curse, because I think that there are depending on what's going on in your life, you kind of have to keep it together, because you're responsible for other people.
Well, you're responsible for the milieu, like the tone of the milieu, yeah.
The atmosphere of the house. So it's like, oh, I can't be having a nervous breakdown right now, which, probably served me personally well during certain things happening in my life. But at the same time, it's also like to reveal something a little more, like to work on ourselves as a couple, I felt was more difficult, because we didn't have the private space that we really needed to probably work on some things,
Yeah, I mean, that I would say the biggest sort of downside would be not having privacy, and then I think spending a lot of time, like you said, managing the atmosphere. That I think a lot of things just didn't, like, there was rarely an opportunity for us to just like let it all out.
Yeah, and I think sometimes if you don't have extended periods of letting it all out, you're just always kind of holding something in and holding back a little bit.
Yeah, on top of just always, like, we're both very busy and there's a lot going on, and like,
for those 4 years, it felt like there was just no time to unwind, kind of.
I agree. But ultimately, I think it was a good situation.
Yeah.
Like beneficial in the end.
And at first it was kind of enjoyable, because it was a new thing, and it's like, oh, all these...
Well, yeah, because for the first... How long? For the first...
The first 2 years, I'd say.
Well, no, I was going to say for the first 8 or 9 years of our relationship, we just lived alone.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
So then this scenario was just something that... Well, first of all, we didn't need a 5-bedroom house.
Right.
But we bought a 5-bedroom house.
Mm-hmm.
So then that started us thinking of the options. And so...
we could have had a Yours, Mine, and Ours, Lucille Ball, Henry Fonda sitcom.
Yeah, it was an interesting... And, people would often sort of be, like, surprised and confused and amused by our living situation. But I think we both really enjoy... aspects of life that are, like, unique.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. Like a unique living situation, a unique experience, like just in general, unique experiences, like things that other people, that may not work for other people. I think we often think like that could work for us.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So in that regard,
Are you trying to say that we aren't basic BITCHESs?
Sure.
Jane?
Yeah, oftentimes I feel like the things that we do, people are like,
okay,
that, like, that's not normal. And to me, it's like, well, why not? Like, I mean, what's the big deal?
God, I don't want to be normal.
Or it's also like, the amount of money we collected letting people live in our house was substantial. So it's like,
okay.
So, I mean, I don't know. People would always say like weird things about that, but it's like we were getting a lot of money, and we were already making good money, and it was just like a lot of extra money to do other things with, which ultimately allowed us to then move to something different.
In an area we like. Yeah, it's, it's always you gotta let a little bit of air out of your tires sometimes.
Or we could have stayed in that house too. I mean, we were comfortable. We were comfortable there. It wasn't like that house was bad. It was just a weird house because it was like all these bedrooms we don't need.
Well, and the neighbors were trash. But
the neighbors were trash. But anyway, that was a long... We talked a lot. What's happening this week?
Oh, God, there's so many releases this week, but I'm excited to see X tomorrow, the Ty West film. Oh, Ty West already filmed a prequel to this movie, I was reading.
Oh, wow.
But I'm excited for X. The Lost City with Sandra Bullock. That press screening I'll be seeing this week is for that. Uma with Sandra Oh is this week. We still have to review Deep Water. There's a couple Netflix things I'm excited about, including Black Crab with Noomi Rapace, that series Bad Vegan. You didn't get back to me about whether you want to see Master with Regina Hall, Ahead's Knee.
Well, there's so many things.
Yeah, there are a lot of things this week, but
So we'll see what I can manage.
we'll get through them as best we can.
Do you have anything else you want to say?
Are you reading anything?
The back of the cereal box.
Oh, well, I finished reading Patricia Highsmith's Deep Water in anticipation for the film, which I really liked, the book.
Okay.
I haven't read Highsmith since probably college when I ripped through all the Talented Mr. Ripley series, who is a queer character. Because I believe she was a lesbian. She wrote Carol under a pseudonym because the lesbian content. And it's interesting to think of a woman, which we should probably say this through the review, a woman writing a male character like that. Because the villain really is the woman in Deepwater. Like your sympathies lie with the husband.
Yes.
And to think that a woman wrote that in 1957, like she was so interesting.
Yeah, that is very interesting.
Anyway, we'll talk about that later. But I'm reading Doris Lessing's Briefing for a Descent into Hell.
Oh, God.
Which is interesting so far, but I wanted to share a Doris Lessing quote, which I think is fitting considering recent events in Florida.
Okay.
Ideally, what should be said to every child repeatedly throughout his or her school life is something like this: you are in the process of being indoctrinated.
Well, yeah. That would have been helpful to know. Although there were things that made me feel like saying the Pledge of Allegiance always felt like, are y'all trying to cast a spell on me? This doesn't seem right.
It always felt like after watching things like The Lion King and I read things ahead of my time. I was like, this feels fascist. But
Well, I just remember thinking liberty and justice for all does not seem to make sense to me. I don't know why you're making me say this.
Well, and then as a child, I started becoming anti-religious and being like, I don't want to say under God. There were times where I refused to say the pledge, actually, now that I recall it, and there would be a point of contention.
Oh, I never said the pledge, but I would stand up because in my little mind I thought, well, I don't want to be disrespectful, but I'm not going to say these words that don't mean, like, it doesn't mean anything to me.
Yeah, like I'm not a robot. Thank you. But what really saved me, besides being gay, I think, was books.
Yeah.
It was all the books I read and the truth that you can find in literature.
Yeah, the truth is out there if you try to find it. Well, we need to stop the recording. Anything else?
No.
Bye.